Well, the acronym of the Congressional Oversight Panel for the TARP funds is COP. COP! COP.senate.gov is the website for the TARP Oversight Commission, and the Congressional Oversight Panel chairperson, I think of as the top cop, Elizabeth Warren. And she's also the Leo Gottlieb Professor of Law at Harvard Law School. Professor Warren, welcome back to our program.
Oh, thanks for having me here.
So glad to have you on. There's a number of things I'd like to get your take on. First of all, before we get into any of the current affairs, your day job, as it were, aside from being a professor at Harvard, is overseeing the TARP funds. How's that going?
Well, except for the part, as you point out, when I heard that the acronym was COP, I actually thought I was going to get a badge. And I'm still bummed about that part.
You never got a badge?
That's right. We just keep writing these reports and analyzing numbers and data.
Yeah.
But the answer is, I think things are going better. I think Treasury has done a lot better at making information available, being more transparent about what's going on. And look, in some way I have to give them an awful lot of credit because we've hammered really hard on some of the decisions that have been made in the past and, frankly, on where we're going to end up with some of the companies that we're most into, we got the most money
Sure.
in, like AIG and GMAC and Citi. And, so the answer is we're still out there. We still keep looking at these pieces. We're going to do one next month on what's happening to banks. We're going to come back and take another look at that after having put all this money into them.
Right. Now, TARP was passed under the Bush administration, was it not?
Yes, it was.
So in a way,
and remember, half the money was spent by January of 2009. So
right.
It was out the door. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So before President Obama came in. So in a very real way, and I know that you're not such a political animal, and I professionally am. And so I don't know if you want to take this bait or not, but it seems to me that the job you've been tasked with is cleaning up the mess that the Bush administration created. And it sounds like, from what you're saying, that outside of the AIG, which that debacle has been, Matt Taibbi's reporting in Rolling Stone about how Goldman made out like bandits with that.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that cleaning this thing up actually is working. That the TARP itself might not have, we can argue whether it was a good idea or not, but unwinding it right now, you're actually able to do that to a large extent.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think something, people kind of forget the 10,000-foot view on this thing. And that is, remember, it was authorized to be $700 billion. $350 billion just went out the door under Hank Paulson instantly. I mean,
right.
To the big financial institutions.
Right.
That's where the big money went out. To AIG, to Citi, to Goldman, to the really big players. By the time Secretary Geithner came in, he had about half the money left, and he completely changed the program. He started doing I called it at the time $2 bets, trying a lot of different things, trying to get the securitization market restarted, trying to get
right.
small business lending restarted, and didn't spend all the money.
Yeah,
so,
but arguably, as long as banks are allowed to gamble in the back room, what's called proprietary trading,
mm-hmm.
and a ban on this out of I think there's 8,000 banks in the United States or banking corporations in the United States. A ban on this would only affect 25 of them, the 25 biggest. It's still being fought tooth and nail by the Republicans and conservatives in the House and Senate.
Absolutely. Let's not call them just the biggest banks, the biggest and most powerful banks. And boy, that's showing up
there you go.
Right now, literally today in Congress.
Okay, let's talk about Section 716, if we may.
Mm-hmm.
Blanche Lincoln, the Democrat from Arkansas, put forward this piece of legislation that many Fed chairpeople have been all in favor of,
mm-hmm.
that splits apart, that reforms this whole derivatives thing that came into being as a result of the Commodity Futures Modernization Act and the end of Glass-Steagall. in some significant ways. Maybe you can describe it better than me. I'm wondering where you think that might go. It's in conference committee right now, and the New Dems, this group that was brought into being by Bill Clinton in the early days, along with New Labor, Tony Blair, the New Dems and the DLC are fighting this tooth and nail.
Mm-hmm. So I want to start it this way. I think that working on the derivatives part is key. We know that this is the part that helped destabilize and bring down or threaten to bring down the entire financial system. I think that Blanche Lincoln's amendment certainly is a strong one. I'll be frank with you. I think it's only one of a number of pieces we need to do to get our arms completely around that market. But I think hers was sort of the strongest and the most out there. And what's going on literally today again in the conference is trying to find ways, I want to put this the nicest way, to compromise so that you get some of the best parts of Blanche Lincoln's bill. You get some control over the derivatives market, but not quite as strong as her bill is. And,
one of the conferees, for example, Michael McMahon, the Democrat from New York, who's one of the leaders in the New Democrat coalition, he says, we believe Section 716 should be removed from the legislation altogether. And one of the reasons why, and why he believes that the Bush tax cuts should be extended forever, is that, using his words, people making $250,000 a year are barely making ends meet.
Yeah, I have to say, and I need to underline, I am not speaking in my role as chair of the Congressional Oversight Panel, but just as somebody who reads and studies this stuff, I just think he's wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So there we are.
I agree. I'm curious again with your civilian hat on. We're talking with Professor Elizabeth Warren, a professor at the Harvard Law School, Leo Gottlieb Professor at the Harvard Law School, and also the chair of the Congressional Oversight Panel on the Troubled Assets Relief Program on TARP. Your thoughts on Robert Reich, a former Bush administration labor secretary and in my opinion, all-around good guy. He wrote about this. He talked about it on this program last week, his belief that because the underlying fundamentals of the economy haven't really changed, that we're heading for the second dip. That this is a W recovery, not a V recovery, because those fundamentals haven't changed. We've just seen a reflation. And earlier you were talking about trying to unfreeze the markets, and I said, but the banks still aren't lending because they can do proprietary trading, and that's a piece of those fundamentals, for example. What are your thoughts about the near-term future of the economy? And the economy, both in terms of the stock market, which is not the real economy, it's sort of the rich person's economy, and the real economy, which has to do with working people. We have about a minute left. I'll just throw that out and let you rant at all you'd like. I'm
somebody who worries a lot. I worry an enormous amount. I worry about middle-class families. I worry about the real economy, so that means I'm worried about unemployment. I'm worried about the things that creditors do to ordinary families right now, what credit card companies do, what mortgage lenders do, what your regular bank does with overdraft fees. I think it's part of the reason, if I can tie it to what's going on in Washington today, that I'm at least very glad to see that it looks like a strong consumer agency is going to come out of this bill. They're debating the particular details, and it could always go sideways here, but it looks like we're going to get a strong consumer agency. I think that is essential to starting to rebuild the real economy, and I'm glad to see some attention on middle-class families because, we didn't save these banks. We didn't pump this money into these large financial institutions for their own sake. We only put them there if they can be there to help support the rest of the economy. Yeah. So that's what I think it's all about. Very, very well said. And hopefully you'll get a badge, and the new Consumer Protection Agency will get badges as well. Elizabeth Warren, the cop.senate.gov, the website for the TARP Oversight Program, the chair of the Congressional Oversight Panel, and professor at the Harvard Law School. Thanks so much for being back with us. Thank you for having me, Tom. Thank you.